Opening up a beer. Wait a minute. Is my chat not working again? Good grief. Oh no, it's working. All right. If you're in the chat, which right now, oh shoot, I gotta change the title. I keep streaming without changing the title. Hold up. Let me change this title. I'll figure the streaming stuff out. Let's talk about AI. Shall we? All right, there you go. Ryan, since you're in here, it seems like it's you and me. Oh, looks like other people just joined. Does the title of my stream, has it changed? Is it different? Let me move my mic closer to my face. It is. Is it Stream 65? That's all that matters to me. Oh, dang it. Hit refresh and see if it changes. See if it changes for you if you hit refresh. Yeah. I believe you. I'll try to say all the important things as soon as you guys hit refresh. So now that they're all gone, let's get into the secrets of the universe. Just kidding. Okay. Got it. Yeah. That's fascinating. So the first few people who join will have that unless they refresh. Yeah. Okay, cool. But anyway, all right, let's chat. Let us chat. Yeah, as always, I'm trying to do these streams daily. Again, I was like, ugh, man, my day has just got away from me. It was very productive though. I did a lot of stuff that's important to do. But now I'm like, oh man, like the day is almost over, and am I going to just snuff it? And I was again saying to myself, no, dude, remember, anytime you say you're not going to do it, you should just double down and do it. And so, and I saw my buddy do like a skull painting. That's why I'm like dope into skulls. But let me not do that. But I also talked about how I will. Oh, hey, what's up, friends? How I will talk about AI, and I said I'll do that today. Yesterday, I said I'd do it today, and man, I was like, oh man, but I need like more time. I think, right? I think I just need more time to chat about it. I don't know if I need like 3 hours, but maybe an hour, I think would make sense, right? But it goes back against this idea of consistency and finding reasons to not do something is something I'm always kind of talking to my students about and trying to teach them to be weary of that. And I always talk about how I am not immune to this as well, that I too fall into this trap, and I try to do my best to avoid it. So let's talk about the thing that I said I was going to talk about now that I have spent some time to kind of drag out this conversation. All right. AI. Should we all be afraid? Now, several months ago, maybe even longer, I did a video. Yeah, definitely longer. I did a video talking about my thoughts on AI. And at the time, it was still pretty new, and nobody knew what to make of it. It was kind of like, wow, like it's pretty impressive, and we're not entirely sure what to think of it, you know? And I definitely was like, okay, this is probably just going to be another tool, right? Because there's a lot of technology I've seen come and go, and I've always seen these things as tools. But then something happened. Like there was just this moment where it started clicking for me. I started seeing more conversation around it, and I was like, "Oh, actually, AI is pretty dangerous for lots of reasons." And a lot of the reasons that I think it's dangerous, and this is past thoughts. My thoughts have actually changed even more, but I don't want to spoil that. But I was like, "Oh man, this is super dangerous," but not because of it's gonna take our gerbs. No, I don't. I don't know if I was convinced of that just yet, but I was definitely convinced that it was going to do something that would disrupt the industry, and that has been true. But the scope and scale of which it disrupted, that's kind of where I started to change my thoughts on this, and I started to realize that it's something different. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. Sorry about that. Let me just get into brass tacks. So I thought that the problem with AI was the exponential curve of it, and that nobody was really caring, like the people that are enthusiastic about it, and even some people who truly hated it, like a lot of my close friends, or was like, this is an abomination to art. Like, do not call this shit art. And I still have the opinion of, yeah, look, it's definitely art of some sort. It's hard to dispute that in my mind. Walks like a duck, talks like a duck. It's a duck. I get the human aspect of it, but I'm also privy that humans are pretty hubris. We're a very arrogant species. Um, there's a lot of things we do that are not great for every other animal on this planet. So it's just, yeah, anyway. So I was kind of like, okay, I get those arguments, and I'm sympathetic to that because I am an artist and I love artists and my community. So even if I fundamentally disagree with some of these arguments that were made on the anti-AI, I have to stand with my fellow artists regardless. Like that's how you make movements move, if we stand together. But my concerns was like the exponential stuff. I was like just the math of that and how that could really disrupt industries. Oh, hold on, my son's calling. I'm so sorry, guys. Give me a second. Sorry, my son wants me to tuck him to bed in a bit, so I told him I will. Um, yeah, the exponential curve of it, right? Like, and how that would disrupt stuff. Let me give you some examples of what I mean by this, right? Let's think of it like somebody makes a video game using AI, right? Like, look how fast I was able to make a video game using AI. I was able to make the sounds, the art, the programming, and now I just typed a bunch of sentences in, and now I have created a whole video game, homies. Look how awesome I am. But then you want to distribute it, right? You want to put it out to sale, and then somebody's like, "Oh, I like that game idea," and they just like put in their prompter, like that same video game that you just made, into their AI, and their AI makes a game. Like, let's say they made like a fighting game, like similar to Street Fighter, and so I was like, "Oh, I like what that game did, but instead of Street Fighter influence, make it like have pizzas fight each other," you know? And on the face of it, that seems really actually interesting and really fun to imagine just making a tons of little spin-offs of like ideas, like kind of what you think would be going on. But it's like, well, how can you commercialize that? Like, can you find a way to actually prevent people from essentially doing what they're doing now, right? Like scraping the entire internet, jacking everybody's work, right? And you saw glimpses of this too, right? There's like memes about it where a lot of these AI prompters, artists, quote unquote, were like, hey, you can't be using my prompts because that's the prompt that it took me hours to come up with. It's kind of like ironic, isn't it? But I was like, yeah, man, like this can truly get out of hand. Like there could be so many things that we just can't foresee. Like there's just so many things. And I never felt this type of concern in my life. And I was trying to check myself. I was like, is it just because I'm getting older? Like, is it finally happened? It's like back in my day, we used to do digital internet things the right way, you know? I'm just like, oh man, I got to be very careful on not just being that person who's like doom and gloom about something that, give it dozens of years or, you know, a decade, it's like, okay, it wasn't that crazy, you know? Wait, am I that guy now? Holy shit, I think I am, right? But thankfully, AI has run its course. Okay. And I started having this opinion months ago. And like I said, I have been having thoughts, and some of my students who've taken my class have heard my thoughts on this already. So they have some comfort in this wisdom that I am about to bestow on you guys. But it has run its course. And what I mean by this is that what I'm not saying is that there isn't some form of AI that will exist and will be useful in some meaningful way. And I think that some people might actually be okay with, like including artists, right? But what I am saying is that exponential growth, that fear that I had has been pretty much squashed. Unless there's some other piece of information that comes out that I am not aware of, it is starting to flatline. It is starting to flatten immensely. And it is beginning to become clear what actually it's going to probably be. Okay? Which is like my original assessment many years ago when it first started coming out. It'd probably just be like a tool like any other. Okay? And wielded by people who are skilled and who have trained in fundamentals in their craft. They will be on the higher echelon of talent that will be aggressively sought after. Okay. So what makes me think this way? What's kind of changed? What's happened? Well, a few things. You know, I just like listen to the internet all the time, right? I'm like on the internet listening to podcasts, interviews, game dev stuff, you know, and obviously AI is like pops up in my feed, and then YouTube's like, oh, you must be interested in this then, right? And it led me down a rabbit hole of insight about the very people who know a lot about the technology, and some clues of something that I've seen throughout the entire industry just in general anyway, which is a gross incompetence. A lot of these people don't know how it actually works, which is, it's like, imagine as a painter, you show up to your canvas, right? And you just start throwing paint on there, and it just makes an amazing painting. But you're not sure what you just did. Like, you have no clue of like how the tools were working and how the material, like that doesn't really happen very often in the world of art, right? A lot of the most competent artists have a really good base understanding of their tools and their methods and what they know and what they don't know, so they can recreate the kinds of things that we all love to see from them, right? We've grown to love a lot of this stuff. These people don't know, and because of that, it's going to be harder to kind of control it, right? That's why you see a lot of this stuff online, whereas you just see like people easily exploiting these tools and people getting like really false data that just seems so obviously false. And in any company that tries to create any kind of peripheral using AI, it's like there's like this like little gadget that was made where it was like you can have AI in your pocket, and it was just literally just running Chat GPT, like a worse version of Chat GPT. And it's like, bro, your phone is still just better than AI, generally speaking. You're hearing more and more people using AI up until a point, realizing that it's like it just still isn't something that will be competitive to just thoughtful internet browsing and searching. You know, another thing I stumbled upon, and again, I could be wrong. Like maybe there's some more information on this that I'm just not privy to. But it's not that it's doing anything fascinating. Like the technology behind it isn't doing anything that's necessarily extraordinary. It's just a matter of brute force data mining and using incredible machine learning algorithms and lots of freaking GPUs to just crank out large sets of data in math. And wait, hold on. Midnight, get out of here. The dog got in here. And some of the people that I was listening to and some of the podcasts that I just stumbled upon, like so one of the guys was saying like, yeah, like if we would have had this like technology, specifically the hardware, more so than the algorithms, because like a lot of these algorithms, it's just like some really incredible math. Like it's just like calculus and shit like this. It's like it's nothing that people couldn't have figured out then. It just was the computers and GPUs that we use today are just so much better to do these types of large scale calculations. It still takes a while, right? I think it takes still like several weeks, but and like millions of dollars of computers, I believe. But it's brute force. It's nothing clever, right? Like it's like it's like a really fascinating magic trick to only be revealed that it's like a simple cheat, you know? Like a Penn and Teller always talk about this, how some of the most extraordinarily big and exciting magic tricks that look ingenious and look like there's a lot of moving parts to it and that it requires incredible training comes down to just cheats, just some basic cheats and basic smoke and mirrors. And how some of the smaller tricks like hand trick, like tricks that are like very close magic that seems very small in scale, and it's still very impressive, but it doesn't feel as impressive as like the stage show in Vegas. And that's kind of what's happening with AI. It feels like, because it's recreating pieces of art that look incredible. It looks like something that a human may have done. Like it's some stuff just seems so hard to tell it sometimes, right? But it's just straight up brute force scraping the internet of all it's got. And they're starting to have a hiccup where the art isn't necessarily getting better, it's actually getting worse, because the internet in which they're scraping is now being fueled by the very thing that it's doing. It's making more AI art that then feeds into this AI tool that then is kind of polluting the waters a bit. And I started noticing this. I was like, this is fascinating. And you are starting to see, and it's funny because I was telling my students literally months ago, I was like, yeah, it's run its course. I think you guys can chill. But what I didn't expect to happen was companies, including the software that I'm using currently, Adobe, literally Like, hey man, listen, we're gonna just look inside, peep inside your computer, bro. It's chill. Don't worry about it. It's chill. Microsoft, hey, we're gonna take screenshots. You know, dude, it's gonna be fine. We're just gonna take screenshots of your desktop and what you're doing, and just give it to some machine learning. Don't worry though. It's for your own good. And it's like, of course they have to do this because the internet is polluted. And even if it wasn't, they've already done the huge pool and the great average of content that we see from these great examples of what AI could have done has been shown to us. It cannot get that much better by just scraping the same kind of content it just already scraped. They've already figured out the average of what that content looks like. They've done a lot of pooling, and it can never really get any better unless humans have another centuries worth of content that has evolved by human content being created, right? Like, you can't make people make new and interesting ideas and new games and movies and TV shows and comic books and novels in a span of a few years, right? It takes a while. For like, every so often there's a moment in history of our media and our art where it's just super inspiring and incredibly awesome. But there's also moments where it's just like, it's fucking the 60s and late early 70s. It's just disco. It's like, okay, what is this shit? Yeah. Don't get me wrong, like, this was okay. But you see what I'm saying? Like, it's versus like what I believe is the golden age, which is the years that I grew up. The 90s, man. 90s were fucking awesome. Late 80s and early 90s. When you think about some of the greatest types of things, like video games were made in the 80s. You see what I'm saying? Like, classic franchises that are continuously being made over and over again were like in the 80s and 90s, right? And it might take 2030s for that to happen again. Who knows, right? But AI can't wait for that to happen. It needs more content. So what better way to find the newest and greatest artists is to find their shit on their computers, on their local machines, But the caveat even with that is that's still not enough. Like, even if they were able to do that, even if they were able to scour our computers, it would also meet, a market cap of data, And so I started realizing that, oh yeah, we're okay, guys. Keep getting good at art, y'all. We might have to be sneaky now, like just work off of our iPads or something, or just go back to traditional. So you have to literally find me to get my artwork, or maybe there will be apps. Like right now, there's an app called Kara that is on the up and up, but who knows? Maybe there's something else that will come. I talked about this in a different stream, like stuff like CG Hub and Concept Art Academy, or sorry, not Concept Art Academy, Concept.org, Art.org. I've seen like waves of these kinds of these forums come and go, So I'm not holding my breath on that kind of stuff, but I'm always excited to see it. But yeah, I'm like, okay, I think we're all right. What also makes me think why people feel that there's a correlation to the job market in the industry is because, there's a lot of layoffs, there's a lot of companies shutting down. But I don't think that's a product of AI. I mean, there could be a small facet of that being true, but I have some examples of why I don't think that's true. But I think what's probably more realistic is the pandemic. It's catching up with a lot of businesses, not just, the game industry, like the film, even some other industries that are like more analog are being affected by this. There's two major conflicts going on in the world that is delegating our resources. You know what I mean? Like we are very interconnected in a lot of meaningful ways. It's hard to see them. It's very indirect, but they are there. So these types of conflicts, even if they're so far away, they do have some effect on us, don't they? It all trickles down. And yeah, I think there's a lot of that, like a little bit of overhiring, a little bit of bad guesses, bad estimations on what the trajectory of the industry was going to be. They were going off of some assumptions because during COVID, a lot of people were playing tons of video games, and they misinterpreted that, in my opinion. From maybe they were thinking, "Look at all these people that are gaming now, dude! Like, look how much more money we're going to make," like, versus what probably was more realistic of a perspective of, no, people are depressed because they feel like they can't go anywhere. And so video games is a great way to communicate with people and hang out and interact and feel social again. And so when we were able to be social, it's just, as much as I love myself some good video games, it's hard to replace good old fashioned real human interaction. You know, that's tough to replace, even with the best games. And even when I think of my favorite gaming experiences, it almost always involves real people hanging out in a real location, like LAN parties playing Halo, you know, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm kind of like on this side of this argument now, where I'm like, look, there's a fight to be had about kind of the ethics and legality of what's going on, but in terms of job security, perhaps there is going to be a time we should be very scared, but I don't know if I see it anymore. And going back to kind of like why I have, or like some examples of why I think this is even more true is, I have people who work for outsourced companies, and they say concept artists and illustrators are in high demand. Like really, really good concept artists and illustrators can typically find work if they are putting themselves out there. I have been, blessed to be able to be consistently working, pretty much nonstop, with maybe a few gaps here and there, since like 2009. And in the last 3 or 4 months, that has escalated. I've been approached by quite a lot of studios. And I personally, as I work, I hire lots of illustrators myself, And so I am not convinced that it's that. Like we're at a real impasse and the industry will be fucked forever because of AI. I think that needs to probably evaporate, so you can all get back to work and getting awesome at it, which you all deserve to be. And then there is something I just think is hilarious, which is this paradigm of, all these companies are going to replace people with AI. And I think that's just hilarious, because the talent was never the problem when it came to these studios. Like people who work at these game companies and the people who work at these large studios, it's never the talent alone that tends to be the problem. I've worked for some pretty big studios, and usually what I've seen is a big challenge is leadership and management. And I don't mean this to say that people who are in these management roles and leadership roles are completely grossly incompetent idiots or anything like that. Like, this is not actually true. It's just that I think a lot of people think these people have everything in order, but it's like, it's not the case. In fact, I make a test whenever I talk with like a manager that I work with. And if I interface with somebody and I ask them, well, what do you think led to the success of your project? And if their answer is anything but, I have no idea how this happened. If it seems like they know what they're talking about, then I am more inclined to think they don't know what they're talking about. But if they're like, bro, what is happening? I don't even know how I got here. Then I'm like, they are actually probably competent because they recognize how wild of a ride it is to create something as creative as a video game or a movie. It is an incredibly challenging thing due to the subjective nature of it. You know? And so anyone who's like, oh, I got it, I'm like, oh, okay, this is probably a shit show. And so the idea of people firing the kinds of competence where, you know, games are made by the talent, right? Whether it was mismanaged or not, if you crunch a good group of talented artists, which I strongly disagree with this approach, but if you do it, they will make a great result. I always make the claim of nobody knows how to make a good video game. Everybody pretends they do. I'm not saying that good video games don't get made. Of course they do. I'm just saying people don't know how to do it. That's why we have so much crunch and tons and tons and tons of turnovers at some of these prestigious companies that make award-winning games and TV shows and movies, right? It's hilarious to imagine now you're left with the worst part of a development, which is bad leadership and management. You've removed the saving grace that actually, regardless of how bad your management style is, no matter how bad the people who are in charge are, whether they are indirectly doing it or directly, they are like actively just sabotaging themselves. But I tell you guys with great confidence, a lot of these people, they just are indirectly sabotaging. They don't necessarily are doing it on purpose. It feels like it, but trust me, it's not on purpose. It's just, it's hard, guys. It's really hard to make good stuff. And doing it with larger groups of people, it's just super, super hard. But you've gotten rid of the very people who can really help you in this. You know? Is there a bit of overhead that could be shaved off the top? I think that can be true. Yeah, it's unfortunate and it sucks because these are my fellow colleagues, but sometimes, yeah, you can definitely have a smaller team. But getting rid of your entire team to replace it with a really good Google search algorithm tool, which is ChatGPT, is a terrible idea. And I think there's some Chinese game companies that I've seen speedrun the route of using AI tools and realized very quickly how unuseful it actually is at a large scale production, and have removed that part of their process and back to a traditional model where they hire genuinely great artists to make great content because it's just more reliable. I always make this point to my students, like if you ask me to make a change to my art right now, hey AJ, add a horn, I could do that, right? Like I don't have to retype a prompt and hope to the prompt gods that it decimates the original concept. You know, it's a very easy thing for me to do. Maybe it was a little bit of a challenge just to get to this point, right? It took me dozens of minutes to do this versus maybe like what you call it? Like a Stable Diffusion or Image or anything could probably do in like seconds if you do a good prompt, right? But then every step after that starts to become a bit of a time sink, and it starts to become very clear that you need a little bit more competency than just writing a sentence. And I've come to learn that if this ever does become a tool that everybody can get behind, I don't know what that will look like, but I do believe it will happen. Then someone like me will be doing laps around anybody who just only knows how to do the prompts, because I can do every part of the process. I can do the rough sketch and then maybe have the AI finish the sketch for me. Oh, but you know what? It didn't do a good job at the couple final stages. And then I can correct the final stages. Or maybe I want it to give me a bunch of sketches so I can riff off of. And then I can take those rough sketches and finalize them. whatever part of the process I needed to use it for, I can use it for. And again, I will be running laps around anybody who does not know any of this stuff. Right? And I will have tremendous value because just like it's been for the decades I've been doing this business for, people will see the shortcut. Oh, this is the AI tool. I'm going to use it. And then they get really caught up in the tool. And then they build their whole identity around the tool. And then when another tool comes that's even better than that tool, because of the legacy identity that they've created for themselves, it becomes very hard for them to pivot. Where I consistently can pivot no matter what tools come out. I can still draw on paper and pencil pretty freaking good. I can paint in acrylics, something pretty similar to what you see here. It might take me a little longer. It's definitely more expensive to do, but I for sure can do it. And I think this is a message I just really want to kind of send out to y'all. Like, if you were losing hope and you were afraid of this apocalypse, think now of how there was a moment where it was all we were talking about. And look at all of these incredible images. To now, crickets. Right? Because I think it's truly run its course. And I'm telling you, lots of companies, especially in 2025, will wake up and realize, wait a minute, the fuck did we do? And start to do mass hirings again, but not in a, oh, the industry is flourishing and we should hire lots of, because all these people are playing video games again like they did with COVID, but rightfully start to have a mass hiring because they can't make quality products, and they're noticing all of these people that they fired are starting to make their own projects at smaller scales with smaller budgets, and they are fucking amazing, and these big studios just cannot keep up, so they're going to either have to hire a lot of these people, purchase these companies, or basically create small little cells within their company to maintain some sort of pace against the wave of indie devs that are going to be coming in the next 2 to 3 years. So, and those people are going to want to hire people, and they're going to be burned by the system, and they will most likely have a more ethical and more empathetic approach to a lot of the staff hiring. You got to remember, game industry is still relatively young. We're getting on to 50 years now, maybe 40, 50 years old. That's super young, bro. You know? And so a lot of these businesses and business practices that we as an industry are failing at, I think will start to evolve in the next few years, and we're going to start seeing the benefits of all of the tragedy that we've seen. Oh, that's my son. That's my cue to go. I see there's a lot of great comments in the chat. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to engage. But hopefully you guys are invigorated and inspired. You know? And maybe I'll do a part 2 and expand and kind of chat with you guys more about it. Get some more chat commentary. And yeah, I'm glad people are drawing along, staying focused, doing the work. Do me a favor. As I've been doing these streams, I give you guys a task. Do me a favor. Keep drawing every single day as a fuck you to people who don't respect what we do. All right? You will be sought after, I promise you. If you are incredible at what you can craft, people will be begging you to help. I promise you all. So, get to work. I'll see you guys next week. Have a good rest of your night. Have a great weekend, everybody. And cheers. I appreciate you all. Love you all. And good night, good morning, and good afternoon.